6,252 hours. Probably. Look, that's not really how it works. I wish learning to draw was as simple as just putting in a set number of hours or filling 100 sketchbooks, but it just doesn't really work that way. What I can tell you though is exactly how much time I've put in and how many pages I've filled to get to where I am today, since I've been tracking it all from the very beginning and archiving every piece of paper I've ever made a scratch on. So, the numbers are 4,940 hours total across 7,310 pages and 1,182 digital canvases. That's a lot of words, and while it maybe is kinda interesting to hear, practically it's also kinda useless to know. The reason for this, as dissatisfying as it is, you aren't me, and so naturally your journey through art is gonna look completely different to mine. Your goals and interests aren't the same, and your starting point is going to be different. We might have both had zero art experience beforehand, but if you've spent a few hundred hours using 3D modeling programs or studying architecture, for example, you'll have a leg up in understanding three-dimensional forms. Similarly, sure, I might have started later on at 19 years old compared to a lot of other artists, but I was also really lucky to have had way more free time at 19 than a lot of people do. With all that said, I do think there's a lot of value in being able to look over someone else's journey in detail like this and see how long it took them to reach whatever milestone it is that you care about. If nothing else, it can at least give you comfort seeing that yeah, it does take a really long time to learn and you aren't alone in that. Even if you're drawing a lot, it's not like all time on task is equal. Sometimes you're just going to be doodling for fun, brain completely turned off, zero thought whatsoever, and other times you're going to be sitting there with your Bridgman Book of Anatomy open, struggling to decipher the massive tree trunk slabs that he calls drawings. And the best part, you might have been learning more while just doing those doodles anyway. Learning to draw takes time, and a lot of it, but it doesn't have to take so much time. If you're smart about how you practice, you can definitely speed up the process, something that I understood analytically at the time I was making these back in 2018, but definitely wasn't putting into practice yet. And to be fair, it was the start of my whole art journey, so at this stage I shouldn't really have been doing any more than I already was, but the further we get into this sketchbook series, the more you'll start to see what I mean about my earlier approach to learning being kinda flawed. There's this really good book on learning that I love called The Talent Code, which is all about how learning works. The author Daniel Coyle traveled around the world having conversations with neuroscientists, athletes, and creatives trying to figure out what's going on inside the mind while learning is happening. Why do some people learn faster than others? Why do I learn more on some days and way less on others? What's the physical process going on up inside our heads while we're trying to develop a new skill? Well, I'm not going to get much into the science of it here because it's very complex, I'm very simple, and trying to describe that whole process without any visuals to aid it, yeah, that'd be the most boring ramble I could possibly come up with. To summarize though, our brain is made up of neurons, the place where our thoughts come from. When you think something, a small electrical impulse is shot from that neuron down a little wire attached to it. This wire is called an axon. Now bear with me because this is the spicy bit. Every time you perform an action while carefully thinking through what you're doing, that axon gets wrapped in a fatty substance called myelin. This fat acts like insulation around the wire so the electrical impulse can travel further and faster. Practically, what this means is that when you think deeply into whatever it is you're trying to learn, when you're practicing deliberately and with full focus, the physical process of learning is actually taking place. Again, this is not the right format to properly teach this stuff. Just go read the book if you're at all interested. It's one of the best books on learning I've ever read. But I bring it up now because it's relevant to my own art journey. Back then, early on when I'd draw, it'd mostly just be copies of other people's drawings or figure studies from Croquis Cafe or Pinterest pose references. And while the actual drawings I did looked fine from a third person's view, in my mind, I wasn't thinking much at all about what I was doing. All the actual learning occurs in the reaching out to grapple with something you don't yet understand, but I wasn't pushing myself at all, I was just mindlessly doodling. And so the actual learning I was doing, pretty minimal. I definitely could have improved faster back then if I knew then what I know now. But with that said, even if I knew this stuff about how to learn effectively, I don't know if I really could have put it into practice yet, because information is at best only half the battle. The other half is really just your own mental health. And mental health isn't as simple as being about anxiety versus depression. Your ability to learn is totally tied up in there too, which is super frustrating at times. If you struggle with motivation, focus, those things are just as much a part of it as anything else. And I definitely struggled with focus. I didn't know what I wanted to create, and I didn't take the time to actually plan out where I wanted to go. I had the vague idea in my head that I wanted to be an animator, but as time went on, I, like many other artists, realized that doing that as a job would be a little soul-crushing, especially if I had to work for other people. Going through one frame at a time, slowly chipping away at a single project over a period of weeks, if not months at best, yeah, that was never gonna be for me. Today, I get bored of a painting if I'm spending more than 5 hours on it, so a multi-week animation project I would have loathed working on. On top of that, I didn't even make any storyboards, let alone animations. I had dreams of animating, but I never actually developed any of the projects that I'd think up. The reason for this was I wanted to work on this stuff, but it was just so hard to do the things I really wanted to do. It was hard because I could never match what was in my head or even come close to it, and since I felt like I'd started so much later than everyone else, the stakes felt so much higher. I had to hurry up and get good or else I'd be stuck working retail forever. But this added pressure didn't push me to work on my own projects or dive deeper into learning, it just made me focus more on what I was bad at and kind of avoid practicing it because that made me feel even worse. It was this crappy spiral that, in hindsight, just added so much extra stress and really sucked a lot of the joy out of making art, which is weird because I was grappling with it from the very start, so you'd think I would have just switched to learning something else. But at the core of these problems, it wasn't about art at all, so if I went and did anything else, I would have had those same struggles anyway. Art was just where they were uncovered. Sitting down with nothing but your own thoughts for hours every day, you can't really avoid these mental hurdles. So I think one of the reasons I kept up with it, even through all the stress, was that I could feel myself growing as a person, even if I couldn't see much artistic growth. And to put it in perspective a little, I'm really only figuring this stuff out recently, over the last year or so, but it's probably all been there since I was about 15 years old, maybe even younger. You can't really work on a problem until you're aware of it, and once you're finally aware it's there, it starts to fight even harder to keep its dark little corner in the back of your mind. It really wants you to feel like it's taking so much longer than it is, that everyone else is just naturally better, and so maybe you should just stop, give up, stop struggling to make a better life for yourself, because even if you make a little progress, you'll never catch up and bridge that gap anyway. But it should go without saying, that's all wrong. I'll fight anyone who disagrees and die on this hill if I have to, but talent isn't real. It's just the excuse people give to wave away their own dreams or put other people down. You can learn this stuff, so don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. All this to say, how long does it take to learn how to draw? Well, there's no simple answer, but if you come into art enjoying the process of making things and diving deep into what you don't know, your growth is going to have a huge multiplier attached to it. You'll probably pick up the basics really fast, and in a few thousand hours you could be a pro easy, but you also don't really control whether or not that's you, because you don't control your thoughts and you certainly don't get to choose your mental health. You only have influence over the trajectory going forward. For me, art was, and still is, the vehicle that I sped up that side of the journey with, and it's still taken me 5,000 hours over about 5-6 years to reach where I am today. So I guess if you look at my work of today, October 2023, and think, yeah, that's where I want to be, then there's your answer. It'll probably take you less than 5,000 hours. Or maybe not, in which case, welcome to the club, I guess.